Listener discretion is advised.
Oh, okay.
Okay. You are listening to Wine and Crime, the podcast where three friends chug wine, chat true crime, and unleash their worst Minnesotan accents.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This raspy version of my voice is brought to you by Recording Before Noon,
Y'all.
which
10
feels like
a.m.
dawn.
Kenyon texted at 11 o'clock her time. This feels like dawn.
It's cloudy outside this morning. I haven't even had more than one sip of my coffee. I'm in my PJs.
I'm in a bathing suit.
What we're saying is we're not fucking drinking in this episode.
We're not drinking in this
No,
episode.
and we'll get to it. But I worked
yes,
out this
I know
morning.
What the fuck?
How?
How?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm probably in a manic episode.
Yeah,
It sounds like it.
We're going to get
Fucking
prepared for
probably.
the crash.
Yeah, that's fine.
Great.
I'm just going to enjoy my mania while I can, and if it helps me tone this booty a little bit, I'll take it.
Ride that high, honey.
Ride it.
Right.
My pony.
Ride that mania dragon.
Ride chasing that mania dragon. Last time I had a manic episode, we painted the entire first floor of our house in one night.
Yeah, I remember
Not
that.
day,
Yeah.
night.
I remember that, and I remember being like, so when are you gonna start paint? Like, what's the plan? Like, because that's like a process. And you were like, it's done.
And I planted a garden.
Yeah, and we've ordered shutters. And you'd had your house for like 47 hours. We were
And we
just
put a
kinda like,
hydraulic lift under the foundation of our house.
Oh, that too. Check, check, check.
I was just like,
We're on stilts, baby.
okay.
Sink no longer. The Amanda Jacobson story.
You're
Unsinkable.
exhausting.
I'm efficient.
I'm exhausted.
But for the
just
next
looking at
month,
you.
I will be in a dark room watching like The Office reruns and speaking to no one. So
I've wanted to
I balance
buy
it out.
an IKEA closet system for the last 11 months.
I was gonna say year.
I'm gearing up. I think I'm almost there. I just have to measure a fourth time.
I was
love
just going
it.
to say, I am in the same boat. I've measured my closet and then lost the scrap of paper easily half a dozen times.
Put it in your phone. That's what I always do. I have to put in a note in my phone, or if I put anything down, I'll never see it again. Ever.
Well, we built the closet, so the space is abnormal, and there's like a sloped. It's like under the eave.
Yeah.
It requires a drawing.
Yeah,
I could just take a picture of the
take
scrap.
a picture of it. Yeah.
You know
Now
what?
we're cooking with gas.
Gas.
Okay.
IKEA, here I come.
See, I'm sharing my mania with my friends.
Your mania's really rubbing off.
It's catching. It's
Love
catching.
you.
It's
All
It's
right.
a gift. I don't know. It's a gift. Who
So,
are we? Oh, God.
Oh, fuck it. I'm Kenyon. I'm so tired.
Hi, Lucy.
Can't even handle this.
I'm Amanda.
Yeah.
All right. This week, we have a very special fan pick. brought
Called
to-
murdering our host, who is too joyful at 10 a.m.
Yeah, this week we have There Cannot Be Three.
Crimes.
Also, Andrea,
Three's a crowd.
if you make a single gif of me out of this episode, you're fired.
I mean, I look hot. You can
Yeah.
totally make gifts out of me. I'm literally, for those who do not have Patreon at any level, what are you doing? This is my OnlyFans launch. I'm just recording in a bathing suit.
You
Get
are.
in there.
You
Yep.
look great.
The
Yeah, you
girls
do.
are
The girls are
out.
high and tight.
Out.
Yep.
Okay, so our fan picker, Bobby Joe Vandal,
Oh, Babby Jaw.
sounds amazing, in honor of their BFF and gateway gal or guy, Alex.
Alex is
Or
a
neither,
he, him.
neither, or both.
Gateway guy, Alex.
Alex with an X.
So
Bold.
Bobby Joe has selected the topic of choir crimes.
Yes, Joyer.
Choyer.
Choyer.
Choyer,
And-
hardly know her.
And Bobby says, quote, Alex is crushing it in St. Paul, where he started a choir program at a high school that hadn't had a music program in decades. He is also just finishing up his master's degree from the U of M in education with an emphasis in research. I couldn't be prouder of him and the impact he is having on the kids he serves at his school.
Oh,
Well,
cheers to you, Alex.
Cheers to you, and I'm hoping you are nothing like the monsters we will be discussing today.
Oh, mine has
yeah.
nothing to do with schools.
Oh, mine does. I was texting them, you two, last night, being like, I hope you're ready for some morning rage because I'm literally sweating writing these notes.
Maybe
I
you'll
was
fuel
fast
me to go
asleep.
to the dry cleaners. That's been on my list for 2 weeks.
Ooh, okay. Callie, you need to go
I'm
lie down.
sensing
I
a
can't
theme
pet you
here
right
with
now.
Kenyon.
I don't like to leave my house. So if anything on my to-do list involves leaving my house,
Yeah,
it
that's
gets
tough.
pushed to the bottom.
Yeah, fair.
Yep.
Push
Okay.
to the bottom.
Pushed to the bottom. So, what is our wine crime pairing for choir crime?
It's not.
Yeah.
Well, obviously we're all drinking coffee, so that's what we're drinking today. But I would not,
I
as someone
can't drink
who
coffee.
I
It
was
affects my
in
bowels.
choir for many moons.
Yes,
I was a choir girl.
you sure were.
I would not recommend, if you are a singer, blasting your like throat and guts with like coffee and highly abrasive, highly acidic beverages right away in the morning because it can affect your vocal cords.
Oh.
So a water heavy situation for someone who is like actually a singer is really what you're going to want to go for. But it's
Got that
fucking
water.
10 a.m. I need it. You need it. We all need it. Lucy doesn't drink it. You're not part of this. So I thought I would
Makes
read.
me poop.
Great. It makes me
That's
poop
the point
too.
of it, yeah.
I thought
Painful.
I'd read 10 fun coffee facts.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Number 1, a goat herder discovered coffee. A goat herder in Ethiopia discovered coffee in the 1500s. When his goats ate coffee cherries, he observed the goats got a lot of energy and couldn't sleep at night.
Was he high on a hill? Was he
A
lonely?
lonely goat, ole, 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 coffee. So he shared this discovery with local monks, and, chemistry occurred. There's a lot here that I'm not going to read, and coffee became a thing.
Wow.
2,
Chemistry occurred. Monks,
And-
goats.
monks, goats, coffee.
A lonely goat herd. Coffee.
Very linear. Well, goats, monks, coffee.
That's gonna be my new coffee mug.
Goats, monks,
coffee.
coffee. Let's design that because I love it.
Okay.
Write her down.
I
So-
love Amanda's manic episodes because she's
So much good content.
she
I'm a
supports
fucking idea machine.
100% of my merch ideas.
100%.
And that is how we ended up with a surplus of A2 bananas fanny
Yes.
packs.
Oh, those were 1,000% a manic episode.
I know.
I
Yeah,
can trace
and because
it
there
back.
are 3 of us, it's a democracy, and I got outvoted
Listen,
because of Amanda's mental illness.
she counts for 2 because there's an extra person in there.
Ooh.
Fun fact number 2.
How many are there?
10.
No. You're cut off at
There
5.
are 2
Fair enough.
types of coffee. There are only 2 main types of
Indica
coffee.
and sativa.
Not far off. Arabica, Arabica,
Arabica.
which is named after the Arabica Peninsula where it was cultivated, and Robusta, which has the double amount of the caffeine compared to Arabica and
Oh.
comes from a hardy plant. Number 3, only 2 states in America grow coffee. Those states, can you guess them?
Hawaii
That's a bingo.
and
What's-
Alaska.
No.
and Guam.
No.
That's out of state. And Virginia.
No. One more try.
Florida.
Arizona.
You're all failing.
Tejas.
California.
Oh, that makes sense.
Number 4. Brazil has the most coffee production. They've produced 1/3 of the world's coffee for over 150 years. Vietnam takes the second place in largest coffee producer in the world.
Beautiful country.
Number 5.
And the last fact.
The world's coffee capital country. I don't get this one. Finland can't produce coffee, but according to this article, it consumes the most coffee in the world and therefore is the world's coffee capital country.
Finland consumes the most coffee in the world?
the
There aren't that
world.
many people. Is it
Well,
per capita?
It
Must be. There's
Yeah.
like 6 people in Finland.
Number 6, coffee accelerates metabolism. Number 7, coffee pods are bad in some countries.
That's a
Banned
lie.
in some countries. Number 8, the world's first webcam watched a coffee pot. That's all it did. It just webcammed a coffee pot.
So it could have been a photograph.
No, it was dripping like a
it
drip coffee
bubbles.
pot. Yeah. It's not a percolator, but like you can see that it's moving. Number 9, 70 cups of coffee can kill a 68 kilogram person. And I guess that's about 150 pounds. There's math. Number 10.
What if it's Arabica?
Or Robusta?
I don't
Yeah.
know. Robusta probably kills you a lot faster.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's a lot. Okay, you'll be glad I read all of them because this one's good.
Well,
Number
wait.
10. Turkish women could divorce over the issue of coffee.
Oh.
I've heard of that.
We love coffee. I mean, yeah, obviously mornings begin with it. Life begins with it. However,
Mornings.
would you leave your partner for it? Turkish women say, oh yeah. In the 1600s, there was a law that if a man could not provide his wife her daily coffee, she could divorce him.
Oh. That's fair.
Love that
Hear
law.
that, Zach?
Irreconcilable differences.
Zach is now very into cold brew, but when we first
that's
met, he
still
was not into
princess.
coffee, and then he would only drink coffee milkshakes, basically.
And
now
fraps.
Now he's
Fraps.
injects cold brew into his veins.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers. My coffee is gone now because it was just an espresso. and
Goats, monks, coffee.
Goats Monks coffee. I am making that mug.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, Lucy, what is our background and maybe psych for not coffee crimes, but choir crimes?
Okay. A choir, also known as a choral or chorus, is a musical ensemble of singers.
Is it an acquired taste?
Coffee is.
I would argue so is choral music.
I mean,
You really like it when you're in it. And then 20 years after graduation from high school, maybe not so much.
It's
what
really
fancy
annoying.
choir were you in? You were in the regular choir and then the fancy choir.
I was in, all the choirs I did.
Madrigals.
I did varsity choir, I did dona voce, I did treble choir, concert choir was the senior choir, and then I did chamber singers, which was the senior ensemble.
Holy fucking shit. In my mind, that was all one thing.
Yeah.
Oh no. And I did that in the morning, and then I did plays after school. So I'd get to school at 6:37 a.m. to do choir practice, then do classes all day, and then stay at school until 7
8.
p.m., 8
Yeah.
p.m. Yeah, doing fucking play rehearsal. I don't understand how teenagers
Yeah,
function.
I don't either.
And everyone's like, all you want to do is sleep. It's for fucking 13 hours a day, we're forced into this
Yeah.
mind hell.
Yeah.
Also,
new
puberty.
information is just coming at us every
Yeah.
45 minutes with
Heaven
just a
forbid,
7-minute
on a
acid time.
fucking Saturday, I want to sleep until 1, and on Sunday, I don't want to go to church. Fuck me, I guess. I'm fine.
Glad I asked.
Can we keep going?
Sure. I'm not stopping you.
Oh, okay. My significant other, Britannica, says that a choir is, quote, a body of singers with more than one voice to a part. So the parts being the the soprano,
Soprano.
well,
it
the
depends.
alto,
Soprano,
the bass,
alto,
the
tenor, bass, but there's like first alto, second alto, mezzo soprano. There's like all these tiers.
yeah,
What's the
It's
high
all
one?
high. Soprano.
soprano.
The Sopranos.
Okay.
And the
then
low one is
alto
alto.
Low is alto?
Low is bass.
Well, that's for
Or tenor.
on the binary, men are bass and tenors, and women
Mm-hmm.
are altos and sopranos.
Okay.
I was a second alto. Are you shocked? Which is the lowest of the low for the female part. I used to be a soprano.
Kids don't drink coffee.
I've always had this voice.
Yes,
Since
can
like
confirm.
middle school. It's alarming.
It was alarming.
Yeah.
It was very jarring when we first met.
Hello. Hello, fellow youths.
It's like, how long have you been smoking, fellow sixth grader?
what do you mean?
All right. A mixed choir is normally composed of women and men, whereas a male choir consists either of boys and men or entirely of men. In the United States, the term boys' choir is often applied to a choir in which the treble parts are sung by boys instead of women. Choirs have taken part in church services from the earliest of times, but for many centuries, their role was confined to singing plain song in unison. So, like, not really distinct parts and, like, harmonizing. It was just straight up singing the
It was
same
like, sing
fucking
this
thing.
hymn now.
Yeah.
Got it.
Mhm. Such choirs varied considerably in size and style, but the choir of a well-endowed abbey or royal chapel might have 50 or 60 trained voices. Big old choir.
Tiggle choir. Tiggle bitties.
Today, choirs may perform music from the classical music repertoire, which spans from the medieval era to the present, or a popular music repertoire. Most choirs are led by a conductor, which I learned what they're waving is not a wand. It's called a baton. I always called it a wand.
Not all choir directors use that, though.
No, actually, most modern don't.
Yeah.
They use their hands and they use facial expressions and like head gestures.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the conductor leads the performances with arm and facial gestures. The choir is typically made up of sopranos, altos, treble, and bass, sometimes with a baritone in there.
Treble
Like a-
is like the la 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 la, like the wavering. What's
no,
treble?
It's pitch. So
Yeah.
soprano's highest, then alto, then Amanda, then a treble, then sometimes a baritone, and then the bass.
Treble
And then
is
there's,
not
like-
always like an included
Level.
designation.
Yeah. Yeah. So it depends on the choir. They have some variations of these categories.
Parts, yeah.
Here's a fun fact for you. The term a cappella is no longer PC.
Really?
Yeah. So the word a cappella, it means singing, quote, as in the chapel.
Mm-hmm.
And so much unaccompanied music today is secular. So the American Choral Directors Association discourages the use of the word a cappella in favor of the word unaccompanied.
Cool. Okay, I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Good.
Okay.
That was
So-
good.
That's as much as I could take with like what a choir is.
Wow.
It seemed sort of honestly boring to me.
Wow. My life's work.
Yeah. Well, we're not sitting here singing. I like to sing. I
We
don't want to
met
like
in choir in
dissect
like 8th
what
grade.
a mezzo treble is.
I
Anyway,
don't think there is a mezzo treble.
whatever. I've always
fool.
wondered.
Not
I
yet.
have always wondered what the deal with the whole castrated boys in choirs thing
Of course.
was.
Thank God. Now
So-
we're getting to the real meat of the issue.
Now we're getting to the meat and potatoes.
Oh,
So, or not really so much potatoes.
just the meat.
oh God.
just the meat.
Now we're getting to the cack and balls of the issue.
We'll get to it. So these people are called castrati, singularly a castrato, and it's a type of classical male singing voice equivalent to that of a soprano, a mezzo-soprano, or a contralto. There's so many different words.
I know.
For, like,
there's always
the
a
parts
new one.
of-
Every time
Yeah.
you say these are the parts, then new parts are listed in the next paragraph.
I know.
It's very
I
hard to
know.
keep track of as a tone deaf person.
That's why I'm just moving. I'm just not even.
Don't worry about it.
So
So
the
many
voice-
of them are just irrelevant.
Yeah. The voice is produced by castration of the singer before puberty, or it occurs in one who, due to an endocrinological condition, never reaches sexual maturity. So it's not always a result of castration. By the way, they don't still do this anymore. This is
No, this is
So fucking.
a crime against
it is a literal
children.
crime. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's FGM,
Mm-hmm.
but not F.
it's MGM.
Yeah.
Anyway, so castration before puberty or in the early stages of puberty prevents a biological male's larynx from being transformed by the normal physiological events of puberty. As a result, the vocal range of prepubescence, which is shared by both sexes, so much of my notes is just binary gender stuff, so I apologize, is largely retained, and the voice develops into adulthood in a very unique way. Prepubescent castration for this purpose diminished greatly in the late 18th century and was made illegal in the Papal States, which were the last to prohibit it in 1870. So it's illegal everywhere.
So
now.
just a cash 1,000 years it was practiced because they didn't want to let women sing in church.
Pretty
We'll
much.
get to it. It was actually only around 200 years that women weren't allowed to sing in churches.
Oh, only?
Yeah, so that's when the castrato got like really popular. So a castrato, also known as a musico or an evirato, which means emasculated, that's different from a eunuch. So we're not talking about eunuchs. Because historically eunuchs were castrated after puberty and thus it had no impact on their voices.
Okay.
That makes sense.
And eunuchs were castrated as like the enslavement, the subjugation. They were castrated for different reasons.
Yeah, it wasn't anything to do with their voice. It was like because they were enslaved people and then they were wanted for certain jobs, usually around women who were viewed as property. So they couldn't like guard the women if they could also impregnate the women.
Right.
Also, they were selected as like high profile political appointees because they were trusted with these like state secrets because they couldn't have children and therefore start their own like royal
Dynasty.
family and dynasty.
Oh.
Interesting.
So because of the apparent like fucking with these boys' bodies and forcing a lack of testosterone as they develop, a castrato would have some very unique physical features. His lack of testosterone meant that his epiphysis, his bone joints, didn't harden the way that they're supposed to. So therefore, the limbs of the castrati often grew unusually long, and so did their ribs. So they had really
So
large
sad.
rib cages.
Well,
Probably
yeah, I mean,
also helps singing.
yeah. I mean, when you fuck with like the chemicals going through your body that are like
Hormones,
designed, to
I like
to
how the
help
same
you
church
develop.
that is like against gay marriage
Right.
and being trans, just inherently being trans and existing safely, was like, yeah,
we'll
let's
castrate
just
little
cut off
boys.
little boys' balls so that they can
Gotta
sing
love that
better.
music.
Oh, and an added bonus is it fucks with their rib cages.
Look at those long arms.
Same church.
Hashtag
I think
blessed.
This is fine.
Yeah.
I can't handle it.
It's so awful.
It's real fucked up. Okay, so they had like big rib cages and really long limbs. Not like really, but like longer than average. So this combined with really fucking intensive training gave them unrivaled lung power and breath capacity. So in terms of their training, they would train like Amanda was saying, like 18 fucking hours a day.
That's
and only
wild.
half of it was actual vocal training. They would study like
The music.
liturgical
Oh,
works.
yeah.
They'd study music theory, all that stuff. And I was kind of surprised that a lot of them are given the choice between singing in like churches, like holy kind of stuff, and then what's it called? Not churchy, not religious,
Secular.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
So-
that they could sing in
Yeah.
secular places as well. Interesting.
Because, we'll get to it. Operating through small, child-sized vocal cords, their voices were also extraordinarily flexible and quite different from the equivalent adult female voice. So their voices could get really, really high, and they had such a huge range. There's I found one recording of one of the last castratos to survive. Like it was a recording of him singing. And it's obviously a horrific practice, but
Right.
he has
But a beautiful voice.
Beautiful voice.
Yeah.
And
And I'm sure that, again, these children were so young, literally prepubescent, so they could not consent to this. But I'm sure that given like the context that they were being raised in and the goals and ambitions that they
Well,
had,
it felt like a
some
high
of-
honor to be chosen.
some of them probably wanted
Yeah.
it to happen. Although, of course, that consent is coerced.
Right.
now.
It's
We
like
know
part of
looking
the
back on it.
abuse is like, you
Yeah.
are special.
Right.
You know. Ugh.
Yep. But also, alas, a lot of boys got castrated and did not
Yep.
make it big in the world of
Right.
choir. So
Yeah,
then they're just
surprise. It's not
mutilated.
It's not like
Yeah.
a super sure thing.
Yeah, no. Okay, so back to eunuchs. Eunuchs have been around for a very long time, castrated as, like I said, a means of enslavement or subjugation, and were commonly used as harem guards or high-level political appointees, since they could not start a dynasty which would threaten the ruler. A lot of choirs are made up of eunuchs, but like I said before, not necessarily because of their voices. It's not super clear when castrati first appeared, but at least in Italy, it was probably in the mid-16th century.
Think about what absolute fucking psycho first thought of doing that.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. Was like, I have a solution. You can sing like this forever.
Right.
Ariel.
Yeah.
Keep
Yeah.
singing.
Like, what
Oh,
an
God.
absolute nut job.
That's so
Yeah.
disturbing.
It's very
I
disturbing.
don't like it.
So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
castrato basically filled the role that women's voices would have had they been allowed to sing in churches in the 17th and 18th centuries because, alas, according to Corinthians chapter 14, verse 34, let women keep silent in the churches.
Let men cry.
Yeah.
That's in the Bible. Jesus fucking Christ.
It's in some version of the Bible. I don't know. The Bible's full of jacked
Yeah.
up shit.
I know, but I hadn't heard that one
It's just
before.
like an oppression handbook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking Christ.
But, there are lots of different translations of the Bible with all sorts. You can find any fucking thing you're looking for in some version of the Bible. So, like I said, the castrati were really only popular in the 17th and 18th centuries because that was sort of the period of time when that was believed and enforced that women shouldn't use their voices in a church. So this means, the means by which future singers were prepared could lead to premature death. Go figure.
Yeah. Fucking infection.
To prevent the child from experiencing the intense pain of castration, many were inadvertently administered lethal doses of opium or some other narcotic, or were killed by overlong compression of the carotid artery in the neck, which was intended to render them unconscious during the castration procedure.
Oh
but
my
sometimes they just held
God.
it too long. The procedure involved squashing the testicles and then removing them by slitting the groin and severing the spermatic cord.
Ugh.
So they still had a penis, but just
yeah.
not the testicles.
Yeah.
In the 1720s and 30s, at the height of the craze for these voices, it has been estimated that upwards of 4,000, and I read 5,000 boys were castrated annually in the service of art. Many
Dear
came...
God.
That is
Many-
so many. And like Kenny had said, this practice went on for 1,000 years.
Well, Lucy keeps saying it's only 100 years, but I thought that it happened in medieval times too, but maybe I'm
I guess
wrong.
Maybe
Well,
not. Yeah, maybe
eunuchs.
not for the purposes.
We're just talking about castrati, purpose of singing.
for the
Right.
choir.
Right.
Okay.
For the art, it
Got
was just a couple
Still.
hundred years.
That's
but
a lot.
It's
But
more,
still, 4,000 to 5,000 every year for a
Yeah.
couple hundred years is a lot of fucking people.
Uh-huh.
yeah. I'm not defending this at all.
no.
Oh, we know.
Just-
we know.
So many of these boys came from poor homes and were castrated by their parents in the hope that their child might be successful and lift them from poverty.
Oh, the desperation.
The same dynamics just have always existed
Uh-huh.
in human society.
Capitalism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the rich people's kids that are getting their balls cut off.
Well,
'Cause they have
actually,
no
a lot
other
of them
fucking options.
were also.
Wow.
Because this was a very, like, to
Prestigious.
be a successful castrati is very prestigious. It's a really high honor. So a lot of really wealthy families did the same thing. So,
Just for the fame.
yeah. But they probably knew that their child had a better chance of success than these poor families from these villages. They're just like, okay, take him away. Hopefully, like a Hail Mary sort
Yeah.
of.
Mm-hmm.
The most famous castrati was Farinelli with a voice range of over 3 octaves.
Wow.
Farinelli was able to prolong a note for a full minute without taking a breath.
Jeez.
Damn.
So, yes, it's mutilation. It's terrible. These boys couldn't consent to it. It wasn't a good thing.
Mm-mm.
But that became, for the successful ones, it became their careers.
Right.
And they were, proud of their work. It was a lot of hard work in addition
Right.
to just being castrated.
Well, it's almost like CTE today in football. It's like, think about how many people go through like little league football and then high school football and then college and whatever, just for the hopes of like funneling through and making it to the NFL and being successful and making
Right.
money in the NFL. And they're going through that CTE risk the entire time, and only a very small percentage of them make it.
Yeah.
That's
Like
a good point.
gladiators. That's my segment.
Wow.
Well, that was fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some stuff.
That's
right.
some stuff. It's some shit.
Okay, well, I'm about to take it in a really different direction.
Great.
Good. I'm tired of thinking about testicles.
Yeah,
Oh.
no testicles come up, but
Okay.
some really horrific shit. So, on November 18th, 1978, 909 members of Jim Jones's The People's Temple
Oh, jeez.
died in a mass murder / mass suicide, but more and more people are referring to it as a mass murder,
Mm-hmm.
in their isolated compound in Guyana. Did I say that right?
I think so.
Didn't we cover this before?
No, we
No.
have not. We've mentioned, obviously, Jim Jones. I think we mentioned him in the cults episode.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like such a famous cult that we haven't really
And we're actually
covered
not
it.
we're actually not going I'm not going to really cover the cult itself today, because one, there's so much information that
There are
it's-
entire podcasts
Yeah.
about
it could
Yeah.
just Jonestown.
right. So I'm not getting into all the details of that. I'm focusing on one aspect of it.
Is it the Flavorade?
No.
It's probably the choir.
Yeah.
I'd venture a guess.
So 1/3 okay. 909 people died. 1/3 of the victims were children, which I did
Yep.
not realize.
Yeah, it's bad.
The deaths at Jonestown that day made it the greatest loss of civilian life from a deliberate act in American history, until it was eventually surpassed by the 9/11 attacks.
Surpassed by a lot.
Yeah, yeah. The details of the murders at Jonestown, like we just said, are really well known. They've been widely covered. There's so much to cover. It would be impossible to cover in this format. So we're not going into the whole story. What is less well known is that the People's Temple had a choir.
Woohoo!
And 5 years before their devastating end, they'd recorded and released an LP
Oh no.
Were they
And I
good?
listened to it last night.
Creepy.
Cool.
Yeah.
And
So the record was titled He's Able,
oh no.
and the musical style has been described as gospel pop funk.
Ooh.
Honestly,
Love
it
that combo.
kind of slaps.
Oh,
It sounds like
Listen.
some Sister Act shit.
I'm here
Yes.
for it.
And actually, the story is very Sister Acty, but like obviously not what happened at the end, but the story of the choir.
Yeah.
So the album cover features members of the People's Temple Choir dressed all in blue, looking out over a pond in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park. And the sleeve of the album includes images of Jim Jones and his followers. So there are photos on the drive if you want to go look.
I
Hell
do.
yeah.
How did you know?
So do you see the blue?
Yes. Oh,
Yeah, that's the
these
original
outfits.
album cover.
Okay, it's so
Whoa.
funny because
Looks like
this
my
is
wedding
like
party.
these dresses.
Cornflower blue.
Like I had to fucking wear these for our small group choir. They were these exact dresses. They were just black instead of blue, with like this boxy top and then a
And
long
sleeves.
dress. And then all it did was just like it had a little tie that like cinched it to give you a semblance of a waist. So this is some very classic choral garb.
Looks like the Minnetonka High School Choir.
It's fucking enormous. That's such a big choir.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is a big choir. So the back cover reads, quote, "Our choir consists of people from all walks of life. We are dedicated to one common cause, making the humanistic teachings of Jesus Christ part of our daily lives. Our inspiration is a lifestyle demonstrated by our pastor, James W. Jones."
Oh, geez. Okay.
The album was no amateur production. It was recorded in the same studio as classic albums such as Fleetwood Mac's Rumors.
Nice.
Also an album from Steely Dan that I don't know how to pronounce.
Great.
Aja?
Sure.
I'm sorry,
Asia?
I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not a Steely Dan person. I don't know. And
You're
Pink,
not?
and Pink Floyd's The Wall.
Shut
And
up.
The production values were really high, and we will get into it.
The People's Temple does not fuck around.
Yeah. So, according to a Rolling Stone article about the album, which has been out of print for decades, quote, "The production values and arrangements are surprisingly top-notch. The music is infectiously catchy, and the performances, especially by the lead singers, are vibrant."
Is it on Apple Music? Because I have to drive for like an hour after this.
No, but it's on
Spotify?
YouTube. A lot of it's on YouTube.
YouTube.
But you kind of have to like go to each different song on YouTube.
Oh.
It kept like
Bill's my
auto-
co-pilot. I'll just make him do it. He's able. People's Temple.
So the record contained a mix of contemporary hits and traditional gospel songs arranged in a catchy way. A man named Brian Kevin, who wrote a master's thesis on He's Able, wrote that, quote, "It's a 12-song collection, a mix of old spirituals, gospel-inspired originals, and a couple of late 60s top 40 hits, all performed." I know, what a combination.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on Apple Music.
What?
Yup.
Yes.
Holy shit. Okay.
Add to library.
Yeah. All performed by a full choir and an 8-piece blue-eyed soul outfit with a hot brass section.
Wow.
I can't wait.
I
for
am
this.
so excited.
I mean, it's really horrific what happened to these people.
Yeah.
But the music is really good.
Listen, you can
Yeah,
be a
they were
talented singer
still
and
talented.
manipulated by an evil cult leader.
Yeah. So Jim Jones also makes an appearance on the record, singing a hymn called Down from His Glory.
Ooh.
According to one former choir
Down
member,
with the sickness.
Down to Brown Town.
Jim chose this specific song deliberately. Quote, "If you listen to that carefully, Jim is really saying, 'I'm God and I came down from my glory.'"
Oh,
And so then the album's
no.
title can also kind of be read as like the he is supposed to be God or Jesus, but really it's Jim.
It's
Yeah.
just not. It's very loosely veiled.
Yeah.
Picked up on that.
Narcissism. Mm-hmm.
But despite the undeniable cultiness of the Jim Jones song, the album as a whole apparently does not give off this culty vibe. I mean, parts
Well,
of it are
I'll be
pretty
the judge of
haunting.
that after listening to all of it today.
Yeah.
At Family Lake Day. I brought a record.
Family Lake Day.
Give me the Bluetooth.
Who's got ox? So as Kevin wrote, quote, "You don't hear a group of religious fanatics whose zealotry will culminate in the Jonestown Massacre. You don't hear a cult at all. Just a great gospel rock band and choir who sound like they're having a hell of a time." But the choir had not always been this good. Like the church itself, it was characterized by its diversity and contained performers of many different races, ages, and social backgrounds. But this diverse mix of people contained only a few actually talented singers. And church members remember suffering through the choir's early efforts to create a coherent sound.
Awkward.
For like hours a day.
Oh, no.
Then Jim Jones approached a temple member named Jack Arnold Beam for help. Beam's parents had been original members of the People's Temple, but Beam himself had only recently joined. He played in several rock bands, and his dream was to make it in the music business. He recalls that, quote, "I really wanted to get into the creation of the music. I had plenty of experience playing live and knowing what music's about, but I wanted to learn the technical part of it just for my own purposes and writing something and putting productions together that would be competitive with the market." So he still has like a good head on his shoulders, even though his parents had been in it for a long time and he just joined. He was like, yeah, I want to learn music production. Let's do this.
Yeah, what a fantastic opportunity recording in that studio.
Right, yeah.
Right.
That'd be hard to pass up if that was what you
And they
wanted
had
to
a
do
lot
with your
of
life.
money.
Mm-hmm.
He decided that he wanted to go to college to study music, and when the People's Temple offered to pay his tuition in exchange for his membership and then
Wow.
help with the choir,
How do you say no to that?
it was too good of an offer to refuse. One former temple member remembers of Beam that, quote, "He was kind of a heroic figure, the badass rock star doing all the great things that I wished I could do." In Beam's new role as choir leader, he worked on expanding the group's repertoire by introducing new, more contemporary music. It's basically Sister Act.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. He's the whoopee.
Sister Mary
Yeah.
Clarence.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So he also
He's the
demanded
whoopee.
he's the whoopee. He also demanded a huge amount of practice, keeping the choir in rehearsals for 4 or 5 hours a day and often into the early hours of the morning. But like
Wow.
it's a cult,
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
So
that kind of like
so
time
you can.
control is very common.
Yeah, they were going to be staying up weird hours anyway to like wear them down. And this was a goal. This was a priority for Jim.
So they were already
releasing this
primed.
album.
They were already primed for
Big
these like
time.
hours.
Yeah. Beam also sang along with the choir and played both guitar and bass. One member remembers that, quote, "He had a really great way of teaching us the songs. He would go through each part and kind of hum or strum it until you got it, and then we put it all together." Another recalls that, quote, "Jack Arnold was a great band and choir leader. He was a perfectionist and demanded the same. The temple band and the record are examples of what he produced. To get the choir in shape, they worked late many nights, but people saw what was emerging and they were very proud." I think it was also like within the People's Temple, if you could like get a spot in the choir,
Yeah.
that conferred status and was like,
Oh, this is so Minnetonka High School. It's like not even funny.
Oh God.
I am feeling this.
yeah, Amanda would have been like, can I be in the People's Temple madrigals?
Yes, I would have auditioned so hard.
What is a madrigal?
It's just like a small group of singers.
Oh.
Yeah. So aside from the members being proud of their improvements, having a talented choir had huge practical benefits for Jim Jones by allowing him to draw more people into his cult. According to one member, quote, "We were so good that we were invited around the state to perform. We went all over the place to perform, but Jim always conditioned it on his ability to give his own message after we sang."
Oh my God. So we just used it
was
like
like
a
a
Trojan
Trojan
horse.
And they like traveled around, and then it was like, see how much fun we're having? Don't you want to be a part of this community? Come over and listen to my lecture.
Oh.
Wow. Now, I'm not going to say that that's brilliant, but
It was
It
a
is.
damn good recruitment strategy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
After
After
that,
that,
be in that choir. It'd probably
Yeah.
work on me.
I know.
Work on Amanda for
This,
sure.
Yeah.
It's working on her right now.
It's
Oh,
fully
yeah.
working. I downloaded the album.
And also, like, if you didn't know how shitty Jim Jones was,
Right.
in hindsight, we know.
Yeah.
But if you don't know and you're just listening to his teaching, which was like, fuck capitalism, we're for equality of the races and the
Yeah.
Be a
sexes.
good person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds very
Kinda
liberal
good.
and good and
Yeah.
utopic.
Mm-hmm.
He's an evil monster.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he perverted all of those things.
And a
He didn't actually
master
believe in any
manipulator.
of that. But
No.
Well, yeah.
He just wanted to control people.
Right. So after the album was finished, Jones began selling copies of it after his services alongside various other items such as People's Temple keychains, photographs of who else? Himself,
Gotta get that merch.
and holy oil that Jones had supposedly anointed personally.
I'd buy a keychain so quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would.
Or in
Do
the
they have
words,
t-shirts?
yeah,
Probably.
Lucy loves a novelty tee.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly.
Or in the words of a former choir member, quote, there were very few things that the church did that didn't make a shitload of money. So it was just another money-making stream.
Mm-hmm.
Around the height of the choir's popularity, the People's Temple had a membership of around 7,500.
Wow.
That's
Not
a
the
lot.
choir, but the temple.
Right.
That would be a big choir.
Yeah. Well, this choir is big.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
Then in 1976, Jack Beam, the choir leader, the Whoopee, made the decision to defect from the church.
Okay.
He's going back to Reno.
Mm-hmm.
He later explained his decision in an interview saying, quote, I saw years of paranoid, tyrannical personality behavior building up in Jim and decided I wasn't going to be associated with it anymore. Through the years, I saw what had started out as a great humanitarian effort turn into a living nightmare. This decision to leave the church also meant sacrificing his relationship with his parents, who stayed loyal to Jones and were ordered to no longer speak to their son. And then both of his parents and his younger sister would later die at Jonestown because they were like lifers.
Oh my God.
So not long after Beam left the church, in the summer of 1977, a lengthy magazine article about the People's Temple was published containing interviews with former members of the church describing financial fraud and physical abuse. It was shortly after this article appeared that Jones and many of his followers relocated to Jonestown. So I didn't realize that like news was already getting out that shit was bad
Okay, I didn't know that either.
in the US.
Yeah. That's why he moved them all down there.
And so he bought some land in South America.
Well, I knew that, but I thought it was like the government was onto him and it was like a tax thing too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It was all of it. That's
why
the financial
the suicide
fraud.
happened.
Exactly.
Yeah. So moves everybody out of there. They go down. Here, Jones continued to use music in order to manipulate people.
Mm-hmm.
After Beam left, the choir fell apart, but it was replaced by a, quote, house band called, and you cannot make this shit up, the Jonestown Express.
No.
Yeah.
Some choices are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you're just wrong.
So this band would perform pop songs for the residents of Jonestown, making the difficult lifestyle of living in the middle of fucking nowhere, like in the jungle with a paranoid and erratic leader, feel
Ugh.
slightly more fun and bearable.
Oh my God.
So they were like, don't worry, here's a tune.
Here's a choral version of Lady Gaga's Born This Way.
Yeah.
Cheer up, chap.
Yeah.
It'll all be over soon.
That's not malaria. You're fine.
It's
Here's a
DiGiorno.
popsicle.
Yeah.
Here's some Flavor Aid.
Yeah.
No.
So one former resident of Jonestown remembers that, quote, "You can only play so many dominoes and cards."
Oh.
Oh, sad. It's like
So-
they're in prison.
So they let us have a
Yeah.
party. We always had music in the form of cassettes. I think it helped keep the sanity. I remember we would sing Brothers Johnson walking back to the camp. We would sing while we were walking or working.
Okay.
Even more nefariously, Jones arranged for the Jonestown Express band to play on the evening of November 17th, 1978, when the colony was visited by a California congressman named Leo Ryan, along with several members of the press.
Yep.
Ryan was visiting Jonestown to follow up on claims made by relatives of temple members who were concerned that their family members were being held in Guyana against their will. So this congressman actually flew down to check it out.
Yeah.
Jones scheduled the band to play as part of an elaborate facade that the temple members were happy at
Yep.
Jonestown. News footage from that night shows the band performing Earth, Wind, and Fire's "That's the Way of the World."
Oh my God. A little on the nose there, Jim.
Yeah.
It was later revealed that Jones had made the temple members conduct multiple rehearsals of the entire evening in order to seem convincingly happy in front of Leo Ryan and the press. So they staged
Can you imagine?
the whole thing. They ran through it like dress rehearsals
Yeah.
of like not just the
This is what it looks like
performances.
to be happy.
Yeah.
So gross.
But like he'll walk in here, you'll sit him down here, he'll ask you this, you da-da-da.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't like it.
The charade fell apart when an NBC reporter was slipped a note by a Jonestown resident which read, "Dear Congressman Vernon Gosney and Monica Bagby, please help us get out of Jonestown."
Oh.
God.
This irrefutable evidence that all was not well led to a chaotic series of events that I didn't know about this part of the story. I only knew about the final event, but I didn't know about the like really messy lead up to it.
Yeah. Shootout and all that
Yeah.
scary stuff.
So this included 14 defectors being told they could fly home, only to be violently ambushed on the nearby airstrip by Jones loyalists. So like they had come out of the defectors had come out of the woodwork and like made sure that the congressman knew. He had scrambled to like get a second plane so that they could all be taken out of there and in like short order, because obviously if they couldn't stay, you know, it's
Right.
like political asylum. Like
Yeah.
they couldn't be like, "We'll come back for you next week."
Yeah.
So he had to like scramble to like find a second plane
To
They're
get
like,
as many people out as possible.
right. And then they're on the airstrip, and then these other fucking loyalist members start shooting at them.
This sounds like a scene from Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
I mean, it basically is
Yeah.
the season 2 finale.
Yeah.
The shooting at the airstrip resulted in the deaths of one Jonestown defector, 3 members of the press, and Leo Ryan, despite the fact that he had been prepared to leave with a small number of defectors and write a positive report on Jonestown as a whole. So he was actually going to be like, well, some people wanted out, we got them out, but most people seemed happy.
Yeah, looked pretty good to me.
Yeah. Because I don't understand trauma. As the shooting was taking place, Jones was ordering the preparation of the lethal Flavor Aid mix, or many say Kool-Aid, that would kill nearly all of those who remained at Jonestown. Reflecting on the tragedy and the legacy of the album He's Able, a former member of the People's Temple Choir named Leslie Wagner Wilson stated, quote, "These are voices that are no longer here, and they were singing because they had hope. They had hope for a better world."
So tragic.
That's so fucking sad.
In 1993, British record label Grey Matter reissued He's Able on CD, but grimly, the original album cover was replaced with a black and white photograph of the dead bodies at Jonestown.
Ooh,
Oh, don't
that's a
do
little
that.
much.
Oh, there's more. And added to the original 12 songs was the 40-minute so-called death tape.
No.
Yeah. And
That's not okay.
I didn't think it was okay either. The recording of Jones persuading his followers to take their own lives.
I have heard that audio. It is fucking horrific. I do not recommend it.
No, I thought that was a really gross way to reissue the album.
Very.
It would have been better ways to reissue it while honoring the victims.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people disagree with us, and some people believe that the reissuance in the way that it was done was good. So Brian Kevin writes that, quote, with the addition of the death tape as the 13th track, the bootlegged CD takes everything worth admiring about He's Able and turns it on its head, smashing through the barrier of innocence to let in time, irony, and grief. So some people think that it worked and, brought the message home. I don't personally like
These
how
people
they did
are
that.
all victims, though.
Yeah.
They're not, I mean...
It feels very voyeuristic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know we're talking about this on a monetized podcast, so
Right.
that might feel voyeuristic to some people, but for some reason in my mind there's a line and that crosses it. The music itself I enjoyed, but I hope that the people who were singing were enjoying themselves and that it was like the quote said, like a sign of hope, a means of hope for them.
Right.
Yeah. And hopefully in the moment in time when the music was captured, then they were all happy and hopeful. And that's what comes across in the album.
Right.
I'm going to listen to it. I think
Oh,
it sounds good.
absolutely I am.
Yeah. Yeah. It was not what I was expecting from
Wow.
when
Well,
I
your
found out about
description
People's Temple Choir.
Is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my case.
Wow.
I literally
Fascinating.
I didn't know that this existed. I mean, I knew about Jim Jones. I didn't know
Right.
about the choir at all.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was trying to find a case, I literally just as a Hail Mary was like, cult choir. Oh my God.
Who knew?
So yeah.
Wow. Well
Perfect.
done.
Nice.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Proud of you. We're ready for my case?
Yeah.
Did you think Choir Crimes was going to be super fun and lighthearted? Well, I'm here to ruin your fucking day.
So early.
Been that
So
fun
early.
and lighthearted yet. So.
No, and I'm about to make it. Kenyon's case is going to feel like we just watched Sister Act compared to what I have to discuss today. So, like, content warning, all of it.
Yeah.
Just so much sexual abuse of children. It's just like the rage farts are pending. Just prepare yourself.
Okay.
So, the American Boy Choir School was a boarding school founded in 1937 as the Columbus Boy Choir School in Columbus, Ohio, by Herbert Huffman, who believed that, quote, the experience of performing the great choral literature and performing it at the highest professional levels could have a profound effect on the academic, social, and moral development of boys.
Social.
They won't need social security.
All social skills.
I don't like Huffman already.
Hard hate.
Yeah.
The school relocated to Princeton, New Jersey in 1950, changing its name to the American Boy Choir School. This boarding school was for boys grades 4 through 8, and families around the world sought admission for the benefits of their exclusive and small class sizes. Classes max out at 12 students. Project-based learning techniques, and immersive curriculum that met students where they were at, customized to the students' abilities and interests.
I
This
mean,
is like-
that's very ahead of its time. Those are 3 things that are still important
Uh-huh.
today.
You can
And hard to find.
You can do a good job building up a beautiful curriculum as a fucking booby trap for sexual exploitation of young boys.
Yeah.
And we'll get to it.
Okay.
Right.
The curriculum included Latin for all students, as well as an incredibly well-funded music program. So, like, the draw of the school is the choir. Like,
Right,
you
of
don't
course.
go to the school unless you can sing in the
Right.
choir.
Mm.
With all new students required to take piano/keyboard lessons in their first year, and obviously their claim to fame was their boys' choir. The choir touring schedule would determine the entire academic schedule for the year because this choir performed at prestigious events all over the world. I mean, they were touring like constantly. So this is from their website, quote, boys who attend the American Boy Choir have sung for heads of state, performed in renowned venues, extensively toured the world, recorded albums, worked with many famous artists, and appeared in television and film, building a foundation of self-reliance and intrinsic self-worth for their future.
Foundation.
They've sung for presidents, at least one of the popes, and recorded an album with motherfucking Bing Crosby.
Uh-oh. Also an abuser.
Yeah,
Which
it all
sucks
circles
because
back. I know.
The king of Christmas music.
The king of
know.
Bing. King Bing.
King
I
Bing.
still listen to King Bing at Christmas.
It's hard.
It's horrible, but
I
I
know.
still listen at Christmas too and watch White Christmas, even though I know
I
he's
know.
a fucking abusive asshole.
Well, we're bad people. So, attending the ABS all but guaranteed admission into the country's most competitive
Admission.
private
Admission.
into the country's most competitive private high schools, including Interlochen Arts Academy, Phillips Exeter Academy, Phillips Academy, Lawrenceville School, Petty School, St. Andrews School, and Avon Old Farms, with only about 20% of ABS students attending public high schools. So that was like not the way.
Petty school is a rough name for a boarding school for boys.
Sure is.
Yeah.
Sure is.
Avon Old Farms doesn't sound that appealing either.
None
I've
of
heard
it
of-
sounds appealing.
I've heard of St. Andrews. Actually, Zach interviewed at St. Andrews, I think.
Okay, well, I'm glad he didn't interview at Phillips Exeter Academy because we'll get to it.
Oh, well, actually, I know a ton of people that went to Phillips Exeter Academy.
Oh, geez. Well, maybe check on them after listening to this case. So it came as a shock when in 2002, rumors were abuzz about sexual abuse in the boarding school by, quote, 2 longtime choir masters and by 9 other staff members, from a headmaster to teacher's aides to a cook. So it was at like every level.
Jeez.
As victims began to come forward, the world saw what looked a lot like the abuse within the Catholic Church. This is from the New York Times. A lot of my quotes are from the New York Times because they did in 2002 this like
Huge article.
in-depth expose that interviewed a lot of the victims, and it was so fucking hard to read. But like pretty incredible reporting. So props. Quote, though the events at the American Boy Choir School happened long ago, like the abuse was really rampant between the 70s and the 90s. It was like fucking years of this shit. Alumni who were abused say the effects have echoed through their lives. Many speak of prolonged anguish in working out their sexual identities, and several of the men tried suicide. Extended bouts of drug addiction are not uncommon, and a few say they came home to molest their own siblings.
Ooh.
It's basically just Spotlight.
Yep.
Yeah.
Multiple lawsuits named a man named John B. Schallenberger, who was not a staff member for ABS, but a frequent patron of the boy choir concerts and a convicted chronic child molester, having received a half dozen convictions between 1958 and 1998 on charges relating to molesting children. And he went to like every ABS concert.
Yeah,
Ugh.
if you've got a dude that is not a parent or loved one attending every child concert.
And giving a lot of money. So John was influential enough as a financial supporter of ABS that he was able to recommend staff to those in charge of hiring decisions at the school.
No!
His recommendations,
No!
oh yeah, his recommendations would lead to grooming and further abuse, as well as access to these boys for himself.
Yeah, a network.
Ugh.
I got you this job. Fuck.
One of his recommended hires, a choir master named Donald G. Hansen, aka this motherfucker, molested a student who later came forward and filed a lawsuit against him. In the suit filed, the student, 44 at the time of filing, recalled Hansen molesting him 3 to 4 times a day, along with other members of the staff during his time there.
Jesus.
It was constant. Hansen was a choir master for 12 years from 1970 until 1982. And while there, he recruited former students of his from his previous boys' choir to be hired as teachers' aides.
Yeah, probably boys that he had shaped to
Yup.
be part of his network.
Hiring the boys he groomed, who were now becoming adults, yielded the exact results he hoped for. These aides would molest the young students as well. So he just created a network.
It's an MLM.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
It's an MLM of child molestation.
Child molestation.
Yep.
The number of victims he had and like also had himself and then exposed these boys to during that 12 years is like unfathomable and impossible to count. Multiple lawsuits had been filed against the school since the 1970s, with at least one being settled out of court to the tune of $850,000. Hansen eventually resigned in 1982 as a result of these lawsuits, admitting that he had molested boys while employed by the school. But he wasn't
fired.
arrested or anything, and he wasn't fired. He resigned.
He quietly left.
Yeah, he retired early.
Yep.
I don't understand.
Oh, you just wait.
I just don't understand how like that can be public knowledge and someone isn't arrested.
Patriarchy.
I know.
The layers of protection. I mean, this is some Catholic
like
fucking church shit.
Yeah.
Like there are so many layers that we will never even know.
I guess
that
it's
are
just like
protecting these
money
people.
and connections because these are super prestigious schools.
Yes, and it's powerful and rich people that are part of this.
And also toxic masculinity, like parents of children, of boys specifically who were molested probably don't want that information getting out.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Listen.
It's all of the above. And then some.
Here's where it gets so much worse. The school responded with refusal to, quote, discuss specific allegations, but encouraged students who suspected or experienced abuse to tell the staff. The staff that's been abusing them.
Great. Cool.
And also set up an alumni helpline manned by a psychologist to support alumni who were molested. In court, the school claimed, and get ready to scream, that the victim that I talked about previously, who was then 12 years old, 44 at the time that he filed suit, but 12 when he was experiencing this abuse.
Multiple times a day.
The school claimed that he had consented to sex and said that he was negligent in not reporting the incident at the time.
Oh,
how fucking
my God.
dare they?
Yeah, when I read that, I like broke out in hives.
The fucking balls on this school.
12-year-old consented to sex with
an adult multiple
and it was
times
his
a day,
fault.
who then
he was
rounded
negligent
up other people
for not
to also
reporting
abuse him
to a system that would have failed him if he had reported.
Who's he gonna fucking report to? They're all abusing him. Like, you guys, I can't. Mm-hmm. The school had also contended that the state's Charitable Immunity Act protected it from liability in sexual abuse lawsuits brought by former students. However, the New Jersey Supreme Court found that the Charitable Immunity Act immunizes charities for negligence only. It does not bar statutory or common law claims that are based on willful, wanton, or grossly negligent conduct. Mm-hmm. The school's legal team attempted to appeal this decision, but in 2006, then governor of New Jersey signed a bill into law in the state that effectively nulled the ABS charitable immunity defense by making New Jersey the 48th state to allow victims of childhood sex abuse to sue churches, schools, and other nonprofits for the actions of their staff, which is a legal move that previously was much harder to do because of the broad terms of legislation like the Charitable Immunity Act.
Wow, I didn't even know about that legislation.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if the Charitable Immunity Act even exists anymore, and if it does, it's essentially counteracted by this other legislation that was signed into law in 2006.
Right.
So remember that like guarantee into schools like Phillips Exeter Academy after leaving ABS?
Yeah.
Well, that prestigious boarding school had to fire their drama director after he secretly videotaped students naked and was caught transporting child sexual abuse material across state lines. So it's safe to say that this ABS boarding school for young boys also served to groom them for more abuse at prestigious boarding schools at the high school level that they would then go on to.
Oh my God.
And
I
these
didn't
schools are
know
so
that.
connected with each other that there are staff that knew that these boys were entering into their school.
Oh yeah,
Yes, there's
it's a-
hundreds of students.
It's basically human trafficking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
working at a prestigious boarding school is kind of its own world. So like definitely either the staff stays in one school forever. For decades because it's a cushy gig, or they apply and job hunt within that community of schools.
Yep.
For the most
So
part.
they all fucking know each other.
Yeah. There's tons of gossip, I'm sure. I mean, I'm not in that world, but I'm sure that there is.
Yeah. It's just it's unimaginably vile what these boys went through and how much they suffered. And there is like so much more graphic shit that this fucker Donald Hanson's victims have come forward with. But I literally couldn't include it because it's so horrifying that like my mental health couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
So one of the aides that Hanson groomed and then recruited who went on to molest students died by suicide after the allegations surfaced in the late 90s. And I consider Hanson completely fucking responsible for that as well.
Yeah.
And
All
Hanson,
the adults. All of them.
oh yeah,
of them.
they're all complicit.
All of them. Sorry.
Yeah.
If you heard one rumor and didn't flag it up, you're guilty.
And
about raping children.
Right.
Yeah.
Raping children and also like literally creating a legacy of like groomed boys who'd become men who would get hired at these schools to rape children.
Creating your own CSAM LinkedIn, basically.
Yeah. It's sick. And Hanson is just living out the rest of his days in Ontario, Canada. The New York Times tried to reach him for comment in 2002 and he dodged the reporters, so he never got back to them. Another one of Hanson's groomed teacher's aides was called for comment, and when the reporter introduced himself, the guy just pretended it wasn't him and hung up. So, like, many of these offenders were just fired or quit and just went on their way. Like, kind of just removed themselves.
Well, I heavily
spotlight.
doubt that they were rehabilitated in any way.
No, and they didn't get,
So
there
now
were
they're
no
just-
consequences.
Now they're just out, dealing with their own traumas in probably equally as horrific ways.
Well, and likely continuing to abuse in other
That's
kind
what
of
I'm
under the
saying.
radar spaces. Yeah. So another account, again from the New York Times, reads, quote, John E., an alumnus who now runs a small marketing company in New Hampshire and Florida, remembers himself as a 12-year-old nerd during his first encounter with the American Boy Choir at its summer camp in 1965. His loneliness, he said, only ended after a camp counselor in his mid-20s molested him and then lavished privileges on him. Though the abuse felt wrong, he said he remembers thinking, I'd do this one dirty thing and everything else would be all right. The abuse intensified when he joined the choir school and took private piano lessons with Donald Bryant, then the choir master. Eventually, he said, every piano lesson turned into a groping session. He recalls fleeing a dorm manager who exposed himself and said, I could make your life here a lot easier.
It was just all of them.
Everywhere.
It's
Every
a
fucking turn
Horrible funhouse of
of abuse.
abuse. Yeah.
Another former choir boy, speaking on condition of anonymity, said Mr. Bryant also molested him in 1964, and a former board member, Marjorie Blaxell, said Mr. Bryant was forced out in 1968 over, quote, a love affair with a little boy.
Ew.
Which, fuck that. It's not a love affair. It was fucking rape. And people who use language like that are also part of the fucking problem and super complicit in all of that shit.
Yes. Love affair.
And that motherfucker Donald Bryant went on to lead the children's choir at the First Presbyterian Church in Ann Arbor, Michigan in the 70s after being forced out for the love affair. And though incidents were not reported during his time with the church, that obviously doesn't mean it didn't fucking happen.
Oh, yeah. No, these people.
You're not just going to go to
they
another
don't
children's
stop.
choir and then just
They
stop.
can't stop.
Yeah.
No, it's a fucking compulsion.
And like I said, I could go on and on with victim accounts. There are so fucking many, which only serves to indicate that like countless more are still untold. The reckoning brought forth by the victims who were willing and able to come forward was enough to financially tank the school. And since money talks, apparently that was the only way to fucking close the school.
Mm-hmm.
They'd promised reforms to protect the kids, and the state just let them remain operational. But admissions tanked after 2012, and in 2015, they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. They didn't even have enough money to finish that school year in 2015, so they just ended it early. And then, like, relied on the good graces of surrounding, like, places in the community that were propping them up. So they hung on for another 2 years. They moved to a small summer camp that allowed them to host classes and, like, board the children. The summer camp was like, you can just come here until you, like, get back on your feet.
I understand the idea of, like, oh, but, you know, music is important for these kids, and these kids, you know, blah, blah, blah. And, like, we need to keep the school going and, like, you know, cleanse it of all the, like, bad apples. But when it's that fucking rotten to the core, you can't save it.
No.
You can't.
Yeah. It has to be
Just that
abolished.
Just it existing and having that name
It's
that mission
trauma.
is triggering.
Yes,
It's too awful.
Oh, y'all.
Too much happened.
Y'all. I can't wait for my final statement on this. So the school finally closed for good on August 15th, 2017. But obviously that's not anything fucking close to justice, because, like, there's so many kids. So if you would like just one little bit of salt in the wound for me to leave you with.
Salt in the wound?
Yep.
There's more?
Oh, yes. In 2014, a feature film titled Boy Choir was made, starring Dustin Hoffman, Kathy Bates, Deborah Winger, and Eddie Izzard. Not a single scene mentioning or confronting the sexual abuse was included.
What?
This is a quote from Salon.com.
The fuck was the movie about?
A feel-good movie about boys singing?
Yup. Literally. Quote, as late as the 1990s, the school also provided a well-documented spot where little boys were regularly and repeatedly sexually violated by teachers, administrators, and other students. I'd wager the school is still addressing these allegations. Now, it is a movie, but it's not a movie about overcoming a culture of institutionalized sex abuse. In fact, sex abuse has no part in the storyline. Variety film critic Peter DeBruge writes, in a country where musical talent is so often confused with sex appeal, Boy Choir offers a welcome alternative, celebrating discipline, talent, and the sound of untainted innocence.
Oh!
I cannot.
Ew!
Yup.
Oh, no.
Oh.
So at about 12:30 a.m., the last line I wrote in all caps was just, y'all, I cannot stop screaming, so that has to be the end of my case. I can't take any more of this.
I can't either. Oh my God.
And that's my case!
Oh, my God. Okay, there actually is
Well.
a French movie about a boys' choir that...
I mean, I'm sure there are films about the truth of this, but, like, this top fucking billed cast, this movie was made in 2014.
Yeah.
When, like, these
Christ.
lawsuits had already been filed. It was, like, this Salon quote says, it's well documented what's been going on in this school.
They chose not to touch on
yes, they specifically
Probably
chose.
in order to, like, get some kind of consent from the school to use their name or something.
Yeah,
I'm guessing. I'm speculating.
I'm just very disappointed in everyone involved in that piece. Like, research what you're saying yes to. I've made blunders myself. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like all these wealthy people are also now profiting in a way, in like a third party way, off of the trauma of these boys, if simply by not addressing it. And
it's gaslighting.
It's gaslighting. And that Salon
Totally.
article, my God, it is so fucking sad. Like, there's a part of it that I think it was like an opinion piece that was presented by the wife of a victim who had attended the American Boys Choir school.
Mm-hmm.
And she talks about, like, when this movie was being promoted and just how much it affected
Yeah.
her husband.
Imagine you were raped throughout your childhood. No one listened to you. There was no justice. There were no consequences. And then years later, you're watching TV and a commercial comes on for a feel-good movie about the institution that did that to you.
Yep.
Yeah, it's awful.
It's
Some might call it tone deaf.
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well,
a
that's
nice way
my
of putting it.
case.
Well,
Cool. I'm going to
Yep.
go back to bed for a few hours to forget, pretend this was a bad dream.
yep.
Mhm.
I'm going to take a
Choir
bath because I feel
crimes.
gross. Yeah.
We did it.
We can make anything depressing.
Oh yeah. Hold
Fucking
my beer.
Seriously.
All right. Well,
Thanks,
Amanda.
Bobby Joe.
You're welcome.
Yeah, special thanks to Bobby Joe Vandal and their gateway Alex. I mean, this was an interesting topic for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I
So
can't
good
wait to
call.
rock out to He's Able.
Yeah, enjoy your beach day listening to the People's Temple Choir
I
LP.
will. Thank you so much. I'm gonna bump it.
All right.
Oh, my Lord.
We'll talk to you
Okay.
next week.
See you
Bye-bye.
later.